Yo, I'm staying where we getting crazy love. My noisy neighbors live just above me up in 13A. It's Jama A Day. The super say he gon'
All right, y'all. Welcome back. Second day of senior week. Hopefully you're enjoying senior week the best that you can. I know this is, again, not exactly how you planned it out, but at the same time, it's your last week of your high school career, so still good to be excited. And we'll finish up today a little bit what we talked about yesterday, and that's just this connection between hope and freedom in terms of you going out and pursuing your vocation. Today, the film we're going to be looking at is The Shawshank Redemption, and then tomorrow we will return to my favorite film, Lord of the Rings, and the film that you always wanted to see, The Lion King. So that'll be our last day, really, on Wednesday, and then on Thursday we just have a few brief comments to make, and that'll be it. So, with that, today we're going to focus on freedom. So yesterday we said that hope is this tangible, virtue that guides you to get past the trial or tribulation that you may face in your discernment, and that it's not a emotional feeling that everything's just going to be fine, right? But it's this real virtue that guides you, that says, I see the evil, or I see the problem, I see the difficulty, but I know that God is going to help me see my mission through, right? Whatever he's commissioned me to do, he's going to help me see it through. And I might not be able to see it myself, but I'm willing to, hope that God will be there with me. Again, so it's not like a hope, maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. It's this guiding force that says, no, there's something there on the other side, and I know that we're going to make it. That's only possible, though, if you have the right sense of freedom. And I think it's really fitting to end Vocations with freedom. We probably could have began with it, probably been a good idea too. But the idea is that, like, if you're going to freely pursue your vocation, which I hope you all do, I hope you're not forced to do anything, right? I hope your parents don't force you to become a doctor or a lawyer. I hope you get to decide what it is you want to do in life. When I say you want to do, that's hopefully you deciding what God wants you to do with your life, right? But people have such a distorted view of freedom these days, and it's from a number of things. It's from pop culture. It's from, especially in the South, a certain form of patriotism that says that America means you can do whatever you want. And we've been brought up in the 20th, 21st century to believe that freedom, what it really is your ability to do whatever you want to do, and that's simply just not the case. So a few quotes again from your boys. I was going to say your boy John Paul II, but right now this is just a document from Vatican II, Gaudium et Spes, which says that never before has man had such a keen understanding of freedom. This is in the time just after World War II and during the communist regime, but the communists are kind of fading at this point. Yet at the same time, new forms of slavery make their appearance, and what they're talking about, of course, is slavery to technology. Only in freedom can man direct himself towards goodness. Authentic freedom is an exceptional sign of the divine image within man. The idea being this, that the most free being in the universe, or even you could say outside of the universe, in existence or existence itself, is God. He's the most free. If you think about all of your decisions that you make, you realize how less free you really are, right? How dependent you are upon your parents, how dependent you are upon social structures, right? How dependent you are upon bodily needs and desires as well. Is that the most free being is God. At the same time, the old joke of could God make a rock so big he couldn't lift it? That's not quite the freedom we're talking about. God can only do what God can intrinsically do. So there's not this sense of, could God murder someone? Well, no, because God is in fact love itself, and therefore he is capable of murdering. And you get into this spiral. Well, then he can't do something. Well, it would go against his nature to do that. And the disconnect isn't with the logic. The disconnect is with our understanding of freedom. Is that we think freedom means doing whatever we want to do, whether it's good or bad, in accordance with our nature or not. What freedom really is us having the ability and really having the right to do what we ought to do. And we'll see that in a second. So John Paul II writes that truth enlightens man's intelligence and shapes his freedom. However, giving himself over to relativism, and skepticism, he goes off in search of an illusory freedom apart from truth itself. And you can see this in all of the things we've been talking about in a negative sense, right? Of whether it's cohabitation, whether it's the premarital sex, whether it's the the things that lead to the divorces. All of these things that relativism says is good and true. Like, do your own thing, pursue your own intentions and will, especially like emotivism, right? You can go chase that kind of freedom all you want. It's not going to lead to true happiness, though, is what John Paul II is saying, is that you're going to find something apart from the truth of who you are, and that's not any place that you want to be. So, what does he say? He says human freedom and God's law are not in opposition. On the contrary, they appeal to one another. The follower of Christ knows that his vocation is to freedom. And this is where, if you don't have that redefinition of freedom, it can be very difficult to understand what John Paul II is saying, because we often think that they're they clash, right? This sense of, well, I have my desires, like what I want to do, human freedom, and God has his plans, what he wants to do, his rules, the Ten Commandments, morality, things like that. And when they clash, it doesn't seem like we're very free, right? When we say that you should avoid cohabitation, you should avoid premarital sex, that you should practice certain things within your marriage, right? It doesn't seem like that's very free. It seems like that's actually restricting. And that's where that redefinition of freedom really needs to come in, is that you're freed from certain things in order to live most fully the way God intended you to live. You can think about it in terms of someone who lacks an addiction, right? So someone that becomes an alcoholic, at some point they have given over their entire freedom to drink, right? Like that they are no longer in control of that desire to the point where if they were in a room or a bar with alcohol present, they couldn't not go ahead and drink it. They're no longer free from the choice to make to make the choice to drink or not. You don't want to get to that point in your life in other areas, right? Where you become enslaved to certain practices and really sins that it limits your human freedom, what makes you actually you. And so this is really what John Paul II is getting at with this idea of freedom as being something that frees you to do the right thing because you're free from things that enslave you. Veritatis Splendor ends with this quote, "It is only in freedom that man can turn to what is good." But of course, we've been saying this, we often get that idea of freedom wrong. So to solve that, we're going to take a look at The Shawshank Redemption, probably the greatest movie of all time. Goes back and forth with The Godfather. I don't know. If this movie's on, it's hard not to watch it. If you've got the time, and we probably do, I'd recommend watching this entire thing. But what we're going to do is watch this one scene right now. We'll take a break, watch the next scene. But in this scene, one of the main characters, Red, so Morgan Freeman's character, is going to narrate what's happening, I guess you say, with his crew during their time in prison. Basically, the whole thing takes place in a prison. And it's important that it takes place in a prison because a prison is a place of unfreedom, right? There's not freedom in prison. You are confined, you're restricted, you're told what to do all the time. Red's character, Morgan Freeman's character, this plays out a lot in his post-prison life. So, with that construct of the prison in place, how could they feel like free men within prison? Well, if freedom just means doing whatever I like to do, they can't, right? There's no way for them to experience freedom if that's what freedom means. But perhaps there's a different understanding of freedom that could be seen in this scene. The other character that you want to pay attention to is the main character, Andy Dufresne. Andy Dufresne has been accused of murdering his wife, who's having an affair. He did find out about the affair. He did go to the scene and plan to murder his wife. He was drinking pretty heavily at this time. But he decides not to kill his wife. She, however, does in fact die. And he's been charged with the murder, falsely, but he's been sentenced to death because they find enough evidence. And he's in this prison, an innocent man, freedom taken away. He can no longer do the things that he wanted to do in life. And it's interesting to see in this moment how he experiences that freedom. So I want you to see those two things in this clip. What is Red's point of view when he talks about freedom, this quote here? and then what is Andy Dufresne's experience of freedom as well. So go ahead, watch that clip, and then we'll come back in the second part of the video for the rest of it.